This is the case of Dylan Lenz. He met a girl on Snapchat and then stabbed her and ran her over twice with his car in a Walmart parking lot. Dylan and Abby met on October 15th of this year. They met on Snapchat and decided to meet up, so Abby sent Dylan her address and he went to her house to go pick her up. Their first stop was Walmart, so they walked around and got back in Dylan's car and they were getting ready to head to another store. Well, this is when Dylan grabbed Abby by the throat and then stabbed her in the shoulder multiple times. Then, with him being in a panic, he unlocked the car doors and let Abby get out of the car and she started running and screaming for help. Then Dylan freaked out even more, now being worried that he was going to get in trouble for an attempted murder, so he took his car and started chasing her. While Abby was running away, she was trying to run downhill and she tripped, and this is when Dylan ran her over with his car twice. A 911 call was made by a witness and they saw a car that was making bouncing motions and squealing their tires. On the floor, it appeared to be something that looked like a human body. The police rushed over there, but not before Dylan fled. He saw a car that was coming in his direction and he got scared and drove off. When they got there, they saw that Abby had life-threatening injuries, so they rushed her to the hospital and she was later airlifted to UW's Children's Hospital in Wisconsin. The next day, they went to go talk to Abby and they saw that she had a spinal injury where she had no movement below her waist, both of her ankles were broken, and she had road rash from her shoulders down to her feet on top of other injuries. She is still in the ICU and I'm going to leave a link to the GoFundMe in the comments. Since Dylan fled the scene, they had a look at the surveillance footage from Walmart and they were able to get the license plate number, which was linked to Dylan, so they went over to his residence. When they got there, they saw that there was blood on Dylan's car, there was grass jammed into the car frame, and that there was a broken license plate where the rest of it was found at the crime scene. They also found blood on the inside of the car, which Dylan's mom said was from the victim. Dylan was immediately arrested and admitted that it was premeditated and said, quote, "While I was in the store, I was like, this is the last day she's going to be alive. This is the last night of her life. I was out of control. I wasn't thinking. My body just took over." After the ordeal, he also texted his friend saying, "Oh no, I'm in big trouble. I really messed up this time. I did something really bad and I'm going away for a long time for this." He also said during questioning that if he didn't flee, he was going to put her body in a trash bag and throw it away, or he would bury it. After 2 weeks in jail, a $150,000 bond was posted and he made bail. Contingent upon his bail, he was told that he was not able to contact Abby or her family either directly or indirectly. He was also told that he had to stay at home with the exception of going to school, work, court hearings, or doctor's appointments. Since his release, he entered a treatment program that was suggested by his doctors, and he is not going to school or work. Dylan is being charged with first-degree attempted homicide, and his maximum time in jail would be 60 years. His preliminary hearing is November 17th. Hey everyone, so today is November 17th, which means it is the long-awaited preliminary hearing day for 17-year-old Dylan Lenz. For those of you who don't know, Dylan Lenz is being charged with first-degree attempted homicide for the attack he did on Abby Minjarez. If you're curious about the details and want to know more about it, I do have a video that's on my page, and also for everyone who's been asking about the GoFundMe, I do have it in the link tree in my bio. Okay, but to the preliminary hearing. So, Dylan actually waived his right to the preliminary hearing, which means it was canceled. The next step in this case is the arraignment hearing, which isn't scheduled until January 4th, and the arraignment is when the person either pleads guilty or not guilty, and I guess we'll see there if he's going to be getting a plea deal. Another update from the first video is that all the articles and statements I was reading all said that his maximum term would be 60 years for what he did. However, there's only been one news article that's published something since the preliminary hearing today, and that was wisconsinnews.com, and they said that his maximum time served would be 40 years, and then he would have 20 years of extended supervision. And extended supervision is very similar to parole, however, the only difference is that with extended supervision, you have to serve your full allotted time in jail first. When new information about this case comes out, I will definitely be updating you all, and I also wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who has already donated to Abby's family. All of you combined, the last time I checked, have donated over $3,000 to her family, and you guys are amazing. This is the case of Taylor Parker, a woman who stabbed a pregnant woman 100 times and then cut her baby out of her womb. Reagan and Taylor were Facebook friends, but they also spent some time together in real life. About a year before the incident, together they took pictures for another couple of their engagement and wedding photos. And the day before the incident, Taylor actually brought Reagan a baby gift and a Starbucks coffee. On October 9th of 2020, a Texas state trooper pulled over Taylor at 9:37 a.m. When he walked up to her in the car, he saw a baby that was still attached to an umbilical cord and the other half of the umbilical cord in her pants. She said that while she was driving, she had given birth to the baby and that the baby's heart had stopped beating, so she gave it CPR. So the police rushed her to Idabel, Oklahoma. At the hospital, the baby was pronounced dead, and they wanted to give Taylor an examination since she just gave a baby. At first, she said no, but she did eventually agree to getting an examination done, and hospital staff found that she had not just given a baby. While this was happening, New Boston police got a 911 call from Reagan's mom saying that someone had killed her daughter, so police rushed there. When they got there, they found Reagan Hancock laying face down on the ground with blood all over the room. When they flipped her over, they found that the baby was no longer in her womb. It had been cut out with a scalpel, and the scalpel was still lodged in her neck, and her 3-year-old daughter was there when it happened. When her body was examined, altogether they found that she had 100 stab wounds and her skull was bashed in with a hammer, on top of having a ton of defensive wounds on her arms and hands. Once the hospital staff determined that she did not just have a baby, she admitted to the police that she got into an altercation with another woman and abducted her unborn baby. Taylor was arrested while she was still at the hospital 50 miles away from where this abduction and murder took place, and she was charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping. Turns out that same morning she had a gender reveal party and she told her family that she was leaving so that way she could pre-register to get her labor induced. Taylor already had 2 children and she actually had a hysterectomy so she could no longer have any more children. Well, she was with her boyfriend for about 10 months and told him that she was pregnant and she was afraid that if she told the truth, he would leave her. While she was faking her pregnancy, she had fake ultrasounds and she also took a lot of pictures with the fake baby bump. Well, at her arraignment, she pled not guilty to the first-degree murder and kidnapping. In October of this year, 2 years after the murder had taken place, her trial began. Her trial concluded after 3 weeks, and when the jury went back for deliberation, it only took them 1 hour and 15 minutes to come up with their decision. They had concluded that Taylor was guilty of first-degree murder as well as kidnapping and the death resulting to that baby, and she was just sentenced with the death penalty. Taylor is now just one of 7 women on death row in Texas.
This is the case of 16-year-old Teresa Vanegas and how she was murdered on Halloween night. Teresa was born on August 9, 1990, and she lived in Dickinson, Texas with her family. She was very close to her 2 sisters. They would do each other's hair, they would give each other makeovers, they would paint each other's nails, and they would just do girly things. She was a freshman at Dickinson High School, and she wasn't involved in any extracurricular activities, but she was a social butterfly. Everything in her life seemed to be going well until Halloween night in 2006. That year, Halloween night was on a Tuesday, so it was a school night, but as most students can relate, that didn't stop them from going to Halloween parties and hanging out with their friends after school, Teresa included. That Tuesday was just like any other day. Teresa woke up, went to school, she pushed through her classes, and once the final school bell rang, Teresa's Halloween night began. She planned on meeting up with her friends and bouncing between a handful of Halloween parties at night. However, when morning came around on Wednesday, November 1st, Teresa had still not come home. Her parents immediately knew that something was wrong and they called 911 and reported their daughter as missing. The family began calling around Teresa's friends to see if they could find any information, and they determined that Teresa was last seen near Green Cay subdivision on foot at around 11 p.m. But that's it. That's the last time that anyone had seen Teresa, and since then, she had disappeared. 3 days would pass since Teresa was last seen, and unfortunately on Friday, November 3rd, family's worst nightmare became a reality. At around 12:21 p.m., police received a phone call letting them know that a body had been found. That morning, a man had been riding his dirt bike when he stumbled across the body of a young girl. This girl was lying face down in a puddle of water, her shirt had been ripped off, her pants had been pulled down to her knee, and her shoes were missing. Her belt had also been tightly wrapped around her neck, and she had cuts and bruises on her body. The description of the young girl matched the description of Teresa Vanegas, so the police called her family and let them know that they might have found her body. Teresa's mother, Jeanette, was not able to see her daughter's body in person to make the confirmation, so instead police sent her a photo of her daughter's body, and that's how she was able to confirm that this was in fact 16-year-old Teresa Vanegas. The autopsy concluded that her cause of death was a homicide and that she had been strangled, R-worded, and part of her hair had been cut off. Teresa's body had been found in an unused soccer field that was about 200 yards away from Dickinson High School, the same high school that Teresa attended. Friends and family members went back to the field to investigate and see if they could find any other clues. That's when they found 2 items belonging to Teresa, her eyeglasses and a hair clip. To some, this indicated that maybe a struggle had ensued and that's how she lost some of her belongings. Now, the fact that some of her hair had been cut off made it seem personal. To some, it doesn't seem like this attack was random. It seems like this person knew Teresa and was angry with her. As if it wasn't bad enough to murder her and leave her body in the field all alone, this person also had to cut her hair off to humiliate her even more. But who would do this? Who would murder a 16-year-old girl? This is part 2 on the case of 16-year-old Teresa Vanegas and how she was murdered on Halloween night. A lot of people wondered how Teresa's body had been in this field for 3 days without anyone noticing. Police say that this area is a very low traffic area and that not a lot of people go by there. It's 200 yards away from Dickinson High School, it's an unused soccer field, and there's a lot of high grass. So yes, it's entirely possible that 3 days would go by without anyone finding Teresa's body. And maybe that's why the killer or the killers decided to leave her body there, because they knew that it would take a couple of days before anyone would find her. Based on some of the evidence police found, they're not sure if Teresa was actually killed there or if her body was moved there post-mortem. Now the police had found Teresa and they knew what her cause of death was, all that was left to do was find her killer. But first, they needed to figure out what happened on Halloween night. The timeline for what happened that night is a little bit blurry. First, she was going to go to a friend's house and hang out there for a couple of hours. Afterwards, she headed over to the Fiesta trailer park to meet up with some more friends. Then at around 10 p.m., Teresa ended up calling a 19-year-old boy that she had met online. This boy lived in Abilene, Texas, which was about 6 hours away from Dickinson. Apparently, the two had been talking online for a couple of months now, and she had planned to go meet him that Halloween night. However, she told him that she was struggling to find a ride. I mean, he was 6 hours away, so I'm not really sure how Teresa was planning on getting there. So she told him that she was trying to figure out how to get there and that she planned on going to a convenience store to buy a map and figure out a route. She headed over to the convenience store, and her movements after this are somewhat questionable. There have been a couple of statements from her friends that place her in different areas throughout the night. One of her friends reported seeing her walking down California Avenue at about 11:30 p.m. Then another eyewitness places Teresa at a house party on Bramble Lane between 11:30 p.m. and 12:30 a.m. And this house is not far from where her body was found. Another friend at this party says that they saw Teresa standing outside talking to an older man. However, this man has never been found. Lastly, another witness places Teresa at a nearby Tejaco station. However, when police went to the station to look at the security footage, it was gone. The owner had written over the security tape, so to this day, police are not able to confirm this sighting. And that's pretty much it. That's all we know about where Teresa was on Halloween night. How she got to that field, who took her to this field, who killed her, why someone killed her. All of these questions remain unknown. It has been 16 years since Teresa was murdered and her case remains unsolved. To this day, police are waiting for some DNA evidence they found on Teresa to come back as a match to anybody. The case is still open and they're asking for the public's help in solving her murder. If you remember seeing Teresa on Halloween night in 2006 near the Green Cay subdivision, please contact the police. All her family wants is closure and justice for their daughter. Teresa's mother says, "I'll keep working on this case until the day I die. If I have to solve it myself, I will." Again, if you know anything, please contact the numbers on the screen.